What's happening, guys? Welcome back to episode 8. I think we're on episode 8 of the JJ Hutton Show. My guest today, Matt Richardson.
All right, how you doing?
I'm good. I mean, we've just been talking shit for the last 10 minutes before we've even started rolling, so we'll crack on from where we started.
Yep.
So me and Matt filmed the show, we just said in 2017, so what, 5 years ago?
5 years ago,
5 years ago, called Celebrity Haunted Mansion. Matt was presenting the show with
Christine Lampard.
I was going to call her Christine Bleakley then, but you know.
It doesn't really matter, I think. Both apply.
Yeah, and that's where I first met you.
Yep.
And to be honest, when I think of the shows I've done, that's one of my fondest memories. I loved that show.
Me too.
I really enjoyed it.
We did 2 series of it, and it was great fun because fundamentally ghosts don't exist, right? So we basically had to make up because you were all doing these ghost hunts and stuff, and not loads was happening, so we just had to pull a show out of our arse every day. And I was doing there was a main show and a spin-off show that I hosted alone.
Yeah.
And the spin-off show every day, we're like, well, nothing's happened. What do we do? And they just let us do what we wanted.
What do you do under those circumstances? Obviously, you're the presenter, so you've got to keep that show going, and you've got to just talk, really.
We basically used to go into a meeting at like 7 a.m. every day and go, right, we've got nothing. And we just have to so like on that show, on the spin-off, we had like a ghost work experience that worked on the show. And we'd go to the execs and the commissioners, can we do that? And they'd be like, yeah, do whatever you want. It was great fun. And everyone on it was nice. Like it was...
Oh, I loved it. Like we all made such good friends on that show.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a really lovely experience.
Yeah, and do you know what? Because obviously... Before and after the ghost hunts, we'd stay in those Winnebagos, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
We had the most fun in there.
It was great.
Like they should have filmed that as well.
Yeah.
that was so good.
Of all the things of all the shows that no one's seen in my career that I've done, that is my favourite.
Is it really?
100%. Yeah, it was like, because all the people were nice on it.
Yeah.
The crew were nice. There was no stress because it wasn't like a reality show where you were all under duress. Like, we're all in a nice hotel.
Yeah.
Like, no one was being starved. None of that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, everyone just came out at night and did 5 or 6 hours of filming and then went home again. Like, it was quite easy, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that's why I liked it so much, because it was easy. But there was such a big crew on that show, wasn't there? There was like 150 people.
They spent millions on it. It was a really high production. Like, they spent loads of money. I remember showing up to the site the first day and, like, there was just trucks everywhere. It was like being on a film set. It was ridiculous. It was good fun. And, very, very rarely do I get to be part of productions that size. So it was really nice.
I've never been a part of a production that size. So.
Oh, come on. Surely.
No, definitely not.
But yeah, it was good. And like, no one was a dick. Everyone was pleasant.
Yeah, everyone was
Katie
nice.
Price was asking Ghost to touch her tits. Like it was all going off, wasn't it?
It was. And do you remember the sort of ghost hunters were Jason and Jack Osborne?
Yeah.
Weren't they? And obviously Jason was a very serious guy.
Yeah.
And when he had Katie Price in his team, and she was just like farting in the middle of a ghost hunt. Oh my God.
I've done a few things with her over the years, and she's so much cooler than you'd imagine. Like what your perception of her is. I remember the first time I ever met her, I did a fashion thing with her on ITVB.
Yeah.
Flying high. And she said to me, she turned around, she went, "You're a comedian." I went, "Yeah." And she went, "You can take the piss out of me as much as you want. You can talk about my body. You can talk about that I'm thick. I don't care. Just get the laughs in." I was like, "You're a legend. Thanks very much."
Fair play.
And because she said that, I was like, "Oh, I don't want to do it now." So I ended up being really nice to her. Yeah. Maybe she'd worked out that you got to tell a comedian.
It's like reverse psychology, isn't it?
Oh, you can do all that? All right then. No point.
Oh my God. So let's go back to the beginning a bit about you.
Yes.
Where are you from and how did you first start getting into comedy?
I'm from Oxford. Originally, I was born in Oxford, grew up just outside, and I started comedy when I was 18, so I've been doing it 13 years this year.
So before that, what were you doing before comedy?
Working in Next.
Oh, really?
Yep, I was working in a Next, and...
Were you that guy who was just, everyone thought, he's the funny guy?
Yeah, no, I was a show-off. I don't know how funny I was. But I started at 18, so I was at uni, and I didn't like it. And I basically was like, oh, this is rubbish. I'm going to do something. And there was a little comedy night there. And I thought, I'm going to sign up for that because I'd always loved stand-up. Like as a kid, like as a teenager, like I'd watched loads of stand-up, went to see loads of comedians and stuff. So I went, I'm going to go and try that. And that was the beginning, really. And then I just started.
Were you not nervous thinking, I'm going to stand up in front of all these people and try and make them laugh like that?
Yeah.
It's a hard fucking job.
The thing is now, like at the time, I didn't really think much about it. But when I meet 18-year-olds now, I'm like, what the fuck was I doing? Like they're idiots, 18-year-olds. And also, like to begin with, it was gigs at like university and stuff. And then, but when I started doing like the comedy clubs, I was hosting like Jonglers at 19, which are like used to be really rough, like stag and hen do comedy clubs.
Yeah.
How did anyone sit and pay attention to me? Because if a 19-year-old walked on now, I'd go, no thanks, mate. I'm not interested in anything you've got to say. So yeah, I was really young. There's a point where when I first went professional, I was like the youngest comedian on the circuit.
Yeah.
On the pro circuit.
Really?
Yeah.
What's the difference between amateur and pro in terms of, is it just the
Money.
type of venues you're doing?
Yeah, the money, we're getting paid, obviously, but also I was doing it as my full-time job. Like I was kind of like making a proper living from it.
Right.
But there's like levels of clubs. So, you start out in pubs in front of like 12 people.
Yeah.
And then you sort of slowly progress into, at the weekends, sort of, the 400-500 seat comedy clubs. So like Liverpool would be the hot water
comedy club.
Yeah. Like I do like those sort of, they're the top of the circuit really. So you end up in those and then hopefully do a bit of telly and can do like little tours and stuff as well, which is sort of where I am.
Yeah, it's amazing actually from what comedy can bring to you in other avenues, really, can't it? Because you see so many people who start out as comedians, then they go into TV shows and then they go into films and acting and all sorts, don't they?
My theory is it's because comedians are low maintenance, because comedy is really difficult and often you're in crap venues, in crap dressing rooms and all that, and we're used to that. So people employ them because they're like, God, they don't want anything.
Yeah.
They're just happy to be being paid.
Yeah.
And someone's paying the petrol as well, like which never happens. So I think that's why they do well. But also it's a really good skill, comedy. Like, because if you're on a live TV show or something and something goes wrong, you're used to people throwing things at you or being heckled. So there's nothing harder than a gig going badly.
No,
in Liverpool, for example, where we are now. There used to be a club in Liverpool called Baby Blue, which was really rough.
Right.
And a bad night there's nothing they can throw at you in any other part of the industry that's as bad as 300 people on stag do's in Liverpool shouting at you until you get off the stage. So you're quite happy.
Is it that bad? Can it get to the point where...
It can get that bad, but it's rare that it gets that bad.
It makes me nervous thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, like, and also the longer you've been going, the less often you can deal with it better.
Yeah.
So like when you first start, if a gig's a bit... I remember doing a club in London called Up the Creek, which is quite can be quite leery.
Yeah.
And the first night, the Friday, was brilliant. They like carried me out on their shoulders, basically. It
Really?
couldn't have gone better. Then the second night, after 12 minutes, I had to leave the stage because everyone in the audience was chanting the word cunt until I did. So it's like that, basically, comedy. It's up and down.
Oh my God.
But even now, like, I did a gig last week. I did this awful gig in a members club in central London.
Yeah.
And there was like 15 people there. And I did 20 minutes to absolute silence. They hated me.
Really?
Yeah. Oh my God. And like, it doesn't happen very often anymore. But when it happens, you're still like, okay, cool. It can still happen to you.
How do you deal with that? Like,
I went out and got really drunk after it. But it's part of the job. Like your bad day at work,
Yeah,
I guess
of course.
You just kind of go, oh well, I've got another one tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then you have a good one and you forget all about
does it
the
rock
bad
your
one.
confidence at all?
Yeah, for sure it does. Like
Yeah.
in the night, like especially if you'll go through a phase of having a few rough ones in a row and you're like, well, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And you need a good one just to give you back a bit of mojo.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird. But you know what's really cool is in comedy, unlike music and things, like you meet really famous comics because they've got to come back to the clubs to try new stuff before they go on tour. And I've seen really successful comedians, like huge arena fillers, have not very good gigs because they're back on the circuit trying stuff. And that's really nice. You're just like, oh yeah, it still happens to you at every single level.
Yeah, it happens
Or
everywhere.
I've got mates who tour, I've got friends that I started out with that are now touring like 2,000 seat venues that are pretty famous. And they'll come off a tour date and be like, oh, I really struggled for an hour and a half. And I'm like, but you're like the comedian of the moment. But it's still like, it can still go up and down like that. It's quite an interesting...
Yeah, it's...
It can always go badly.
It's mad.
No matter where you are in your career. It's
Yeah.
not like you get to play, arenas and you smash it. It's a whole different skill set.
I suppose,
and there's
though,
more to go wrong.
When you're in it for the longevity, like yourself, and it's an actual career, having these moments is what pushes you to get better as well, isn't it?
Yeah, like I did one a while back, and I'm quite rude on stage, right? And I did this gig a while back, and it hadn't gone well. And when I was on stage, I was like, I need to be better at doing not rude stuff that I can change into when it's not going my way.
Yeah.
And that sort of pushed me to go out and write something a bit different and things. So yeah, like if you're just always having great gigs, you get a bit lazy probably.
Yeah.
It's like when bands get massive, like as soon as they're big, their albums get crap.
Yeah.
Because they don't have a real life. Whereas comedy, you still have to go back to that base level to start up again.
And keep starting again.
Yeah. Like, it's really interesting.
It's a very high pressure job, isn't it?
Yeah, but like the stakes are relatively low because like it's not like God, I'm doing the clubs at my level. I'm doing the clubs and being paid thousands to do this. It's like, oh, I'm doing it for like a couple of £100, so it's fine if it goes wrong. It's like no one's spending a fortune on me. I guess it is stressful, but it's like any other job. You just get used to it. Like I'd find your job stressful.
Well, yeah, I suppose. Yeah, that's
like
that's
because
true.
also like if I all I do is ruin someone's night.
I can ruin someone's life.
Yeah, exactly. That's the difference. Do you know what I mean? Like, we've all been, I think, even I've been to see comedy shows and left and gone, oh, that wasn't very good. I'm 15 quid down. Like, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
But if you do something wrong,
well, that's
you know, it's a laser. You got to get a laser to fix it. That's impossibly hard. So I'd find yours more stressful than mine.
Yeah, I suppose. But
you deal in eternity. I deal in fleeting moments.
Yeah. But they could last for eternity.
Well, yeah, if someone films it and puts it online.
Especially with social media now.
It's a career ender.
Oh, God. So, you know, obviously you started on the circuits.
Yes.
When did you what was the thing that made you think, I've broke through? What was the show that you thought, I've broke into the big scene now?
So when I started doing like 10 minutes at little tiny open mic clubs and, you know, new act clubs, all I wanted to do was like I remember being paid £100 for the first time for a gig. And for me, that was like, this is the big boy money.
Yeah.
And I had to go all the way to Falmouth in Cornwall for it and ended up spending £80 on a train ticket. So I didn't really make 100 quid. But, it was sort of, for me, there's always these little things that happen. So like, I've never been one of going, I'm going to fill arenas, that's where I need to be, or I want to tour. It's always been like, I want to get to that the next level on, really. And I think there's a lot of comedians who aren't very happy because they're not at the level they've always dreamed they'd be at. But because my goals have been quite small, I'm quite content compared to most comedians. I'm just really like, good, though. It'd be nice to get, like, even things like, there's a couple of clubs that don't book me, which is the same with every comedian. Everyone's got a couple of clubs that don't book them. And all I think is by the end of the year, I'd like them to book me. Like just a little victory for me is what I like. But I think the first moment I properly felt like, oh yeah, this is going well, is I did a gig in my hometown in like the local arts centre, me and like 3 other comics. And I sort of headlined it and did like 40 minutes, the longest I'd ever done. And it went really well. Yeah. And my mum and dad were there and my dad came out and went, oh yeah, that was excellent. And I felt like, oh yeah, I could probably do this as a proper job now.
Wow.
But I was still working in an estate agents at the time, part-time. So,
oh really?
Yeah. So that was kind of one of the first moments I went, right, I might be good enough at this.
That's good.
To make it work.
Is it nerve-wracking having your family there?
No, it doesn't bother me really anymore. It used to because my dad heckles. Every time. Yeah. So I normally do, on each tour I'll do my hometown because it sells out because it's just all my mum's friends. It's just an easy money maker, that one. And I remember the first time I ever did it, I used to have a joke. I mean, I still do the joke sometimes, but I used to have a joke about hearing my parents have a threesome. And I used to do this thing about coming home, hearing my parents having sex, which didn't bother me that much till the third voice kicked in. Silly little joke, right? I did it in my hometown in front of 200 people. My dad stands up and he goes, "That's me he's talking about, what a legend," right, like that, which got the biggest laugh of the show, obviously.
Really?
And then I did a show in 2017, a tour, where I read out all the gay erotic fiction that had been written about me on the internet, like, you know, slash fiction, right. Sort of, where they fictional gay relationships. And at the beginning of the show, I talked about 50 Shades of Grey a little bit. And I went, has anyone read it? And at my biggest tour date in London, my mum and dad were there. There was like lots of people in that I knew and, lots of like TV people and all those. And I was, anyone read 50 Shades of Grey? And I'd mentioned my mum was in there. And I went, oh, thank God my mum didn't whoop at that. And my dad stood up in front of everyone and went, she doesn't need to read it, son, because she's fucking living it. So I find him a bit of a problematic audience member.
Your own dad.
My own dad. I get more nervous when it's like mates and stuff come, and because people like every so often, like one of your mates will be like, oh, I've not been to a bit of comedy for a while, I'll come. And you go to a gig, and if it's a bit ropey or a bit Larry, you're like, oh, I don't want them to see me die. But in my own tour shows, it's fine because I know the audience are there to see me.
Yeah.
But if it's in a club, like, I've had friends watch me bomb, and that is
really
humiliating. Well, yeah, because afterwards you can see them scrambling to tell you why it wasn't bad, even though you both know it was bad. Like, oh, well, you know, they were difficult and all that. And you're like, it was shit. I was shit. I'm sorry.
If that was me, and if I was in that position, my mates would then heckle me every time I went out with them alone. They'd be like, you were so shit the other night. Oh,
so you know, my mates
would rinse me for it.
What's even worse is like, I've did a gig once and a couple of mates came, and I thought, oh, you know, we'll go out for dinner afterwards or something, or some drinks.
Yeah.
And the gig went so badly afterwards, they're like, oh, we've got to get home. I've got this thing in the morning. And I was like, oh, you just can't be around me because you don't know how to deal with how badly that went.
Oh my God.
But that's the thing, is like, you know, bad gigs don't affect me, but people that, like, I've had a death before, and like my mum was there, and like she had to leave the room because it was too much for her to watch me dying. It's not awkward when it happens to you all the time, like when you're used to it, like it's part of the job. But I've even been in the audience and watched other comedians die, and I can't hack it.
Yeah.
I'd rather it be me dying than watching them die. Yeah, because it's just it's awkward and embarrassing. Have you ever been to much comedy where you've seen someone be bad?
Yeah, I mean, I've been to a lot of little small comedy shows, and I've seen people that you can tell it's not going well for them, but they're getting a few little laughs. I've never been there when it's been completely.
It's bad, and the problem is you always hear the only laughs you hear at a gig like that are the other comedians at the back who every time something doesn't work really laugh. Really? Well, yeah, because everyone's been through it. You just know what's happening, and it's amusing. But if it's someone I don't know very well, and you're in the audience, it's like, oh my god, I just want this to end for you. It's the horrible feeling when you're there. And people in the front row can't even look at you because they're so embarrassed on your behalf. That's the worst feeling.
God. Is it hard? So obviously when you go to these comedy shows, there's normally like 3-4 acts on, isn't there? Is it hard knowing that you're almost in competition with the others?
Well, you're not so much
for the laughs.
It's, you know what though? You're not though, because if everyone has a good gig before you, it's better for you. Whereas if it's crap up until you've got more of a battle because the audience are sat there going, "Oh, this is shit. This is crap. I don't know why I've come to this." Yeah. Whereas if everyone's good, then it's better for you. Yeah. So you want everyone to be good, and you want the compare to be great, and like get them in the right mood and everything. So it's. And also, if other people are having a great gig, in your head you're going, I need to have a better gig. So actually it's better for your mentality, I think, because it makes you deliver.
Yeah, and also
that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, and I found that when you go as a spectator, when you go to these gigs, they obviously have the 2 or 3 acts and then the main act. Yeah, and I always think the pressure for the main act because. Well, they're called the main act.
Yeah, the headliner.
So how do they work out who's going to be the main act?
Because experience.
Is it just based on
pretty much? Not always. Like I headline over acts that have been going longer than me, but quite often at these gigs, especially the big weekend ones like the Friday, Saturdays, you're all on the same money. Yeah. And everyone could be on any spot on that bill. That's a really good club. Yeah. If the headliner dropped out, anyone on the bill could move to headline and they could bring in another act and all. That's how it should be really at the big clubs. But you do somewhere it's like newer acts in the middle, more, and you're the most experienced, or you've got the most profile, so they'll sell some tickets because you're there. Wow. So I quite often close, but then it doesn't bother me because you'll do 2 gigs a night quite often. So you'll open one, like last night I did 2 gigs and I opened one and closed the other, like 20 minutes down the road from each other.
Oh, cool. And that's in the same night?
Yeah, that's quite common. Or if you're in London or a big city, like you can do 3 a night.
Really?
Yeah.
That must be knackering.
No, it's because it's only 20 minutes a pop, so it's fine. It's an hour's work.
See, like it's funny because when I'm tattooing, like people just think I'm sat down all day and I'm drawing. But mentally, it's tiring. Yeah. It's really tiring. So that's where I'm coming from when I say that. It must be mentally, you've got to you're switched on constantly for those 20 minutes.
You know what? It's I'd say that it's a real adrenaline. I imagine it's like tattooing because of that level of concentration. Yeah. And it's an adrenaline thing. And by the end of it, if you do so in Edinburgh during the Fringe, like my record is 8 gigs in a day. And by the end of that, you're absolutely wiped out. Yeah. Right? And it's an emotional roller coaster because one will go well, then one will go not so well, and then one will go amazing and one will go shit. And it's just like that, a real high and low. But yeah, if you do sort of 3 on the bounce, by the 3rd one as well, though, you're bulletproof. Yeah. Because you're in the right zone for it. Yeah. I don't know if that's the same with tattooing, if you're best for your first one or your last one of the day.
Well, I only do 1 a day.
Oh, do you really?
All day, yeah.
Oh, things are going all right then. Jeez. I mean, I understand you're not like a shitty little tattoo shop in Scunthorpe doing stars on girls' ankles, are you?
Oh, I've done me fair share.
That's basically your new act when you work up, isn't it? You've got to go through all the levels of it.
Yeah, well, that's it, yeah. It is, but I think for your job as well, the other thing is you can't have, if you can't take your own emotions, if you're having a bad day, you've got to switch on into a different character almost. If you've got personal things going on in your life and then you're doing a gig that night and you've got 3 gigs in one night, that's a lot to take on and then switch out of it.
I like it when things are going on because it's... And this might be the same with tattooing. It's like meditation. On stage, you've got to concentrate on the job in hand so much that you don't have any capacity for any other worries or anything. Yeah. Like if you're thinking about other things on stage, the gig just doesn't work. So your brain almost switches everything else off whilst you're in that 20 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever it is. So I find it a real tonic for those kinds of things.
Yeah, because I can't switch away from it.
It must be the same with you, because you've got to...
Well, to be honest, the thing I find, I've been doing jiu-jitsu for the last couple of years. Oh, yeah. And I find that obviously when you're fighting with someone for an hour, you're not thinking about anything else other than not trying to get killed, basically. Yeah. So tattooing's a bit different for me because I'm so used to doing it constantly now that I can be thinking of other things and just keep doing the same thing. But the only thing I can compare it to is jiu-jitsu, really. I don't think about anything else, no matter what's going on in my life, for that hour that I'm training. It's like, on a good night, it's a dance with the audience. On a bad night, it is a fight with the audience. Yeah.
Because if they're rowdy or there's some people in that like chatting and, chipping in, it's like a back and forth. It's like they do something, you do something, and you've got to keep constantly being on like what they're going to do next.
Yeah.
It's like that. And but you just can't concentrate on other things. So I really like it. Yeah. And if you do, like I've had it before where, say I've had a bad day and it's leaked onto the stage, if I've not, I've not really been in the right headspace, and I've sort of, I've been comparing before and chatted to an audience member and been like maybe a bit overly aggressive and like not very nice, and it ruins the gig for everybody. So, like I can't do it hungover anymore. Really? So when I was younger, I didn't really get hungover. So, but as I've sort of hit 30 and stuff now, I'm just not in the right, because I can't think quick enough, and I've just that split second behind if I'm hungover.
It's mad, that, isn't it?
So I can't do gigs hungover. I won't drink the night before a gig anymore.
Do you drink on a gig sometimes? Maybe
very occasionally. If I'm hosting, I'll have a drink after I brought the last act on, because at the end of the gig you only have to go, thanks very much, enjoy your night, bye.
Yeah.
So then you can drink and you can sit and watch the last act and enjoy a drink. But I don't do it loads. I have the odd beer now and then, but I drive everywhere, so I can't really.
Oh, you drive everywhere, do you?
Oh my God, yeah, mate. I would do so many miles.
Really?
Yeah, it's boring. That's the worst part of the job, is being in the car by yourself.
I was going to say, do you travel around to everywhere in the UK?
Yep. So yesterday I did 240 miles. I've done 100 today, and I've got another 130 to drive. And then tomorrow I'm in Middlesbrough, and then I'll drive back to London. So it's like...
Are you gigging tonight?
Yeah, I've got a gig tonight in Stockport in Manchester.
Oh wow!
But I'm doing this, and then and I was in Yorkshire last night. I'm sort of up north for a few days, basically. Yeah. So I've sort of camped out in Yorkshire.
And do you spend, because you've got a missus, right?
Yeah.
Do you travel a lot on your own, or do you travel?
Oh God, she doesn't come to loads of gigs. She came up with me yesterday because we're going to Yorkshire, but she travels a lot for her job, so we're kind of used to it. Lockdown was a real shock. One of us is normally away for a night or two a week.
Really?
Yeah, and I really like it. Is that bad? I love it. Because it means that when you're away for a couple of days, I'm like, I really miss her. Whereas if we're around each other all the time, because she's freelance as well and works in fashion, she's home a lot. So we spend a lot of time, like my weekends are like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, like that kind of time a week. There's not loads going on, or it's not that far away.
Yeah.
So we spend a lot of the days together, which is really nice.
Yeah.
But, I get to Friday and I'm like, I can't wait for 2 nights in a hotel. That'd be lovely.
It was funny. I saw this video yesterday that's gone viral, and it was a girl, and she goes up to her boyfriend and she says, right, we're going to play this game, whatever it is, and if you win, you get to, I'm like basically your slave for a day. You can tell me I've got to do anything you say or whatever. So anyway, he wins this game, and she goes, what do you want me to do? He goes, just leave me alone for the day, actually. I'll just chill on my own for the day, if that's all right. She had her face is such a picture. She's like, what? He's just like, yeah, just leave me alone.
Oh, it's nice though.
A bit of me time.
I never used to, like when I first started, I used to really struggle with the time in the car. I used to find it really boring and being alone with my thoughts. But I just listen to loads of, I read like 30 books a year because I listen to audiobooks in the car.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, and if I'm coming up north, that's like, if I'm going up and down in a day, that's 8 hours in a car. That's half a book.
Yeah.
Or more sometimes.
Really?
So that for me, and that is I'm really zen about it now. I've got loads of mates who do it, and they're like, I just want to do the travelling for years. I'm like, the travelling doesn't really... Because also, I work 20 minutes a night.
Yeah.
Like the travelling is the day job, really.
Yeah.
That's the little fun bit, whereas sitting in a car is the stressful bit, and it's not that bad. It doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah, that's not... Like, see, I think as well, do you like driving?
It doesn't... I don't love it, but it doesn't bother me at all.
See, I like driving, and so many people go, I don't like driving. I'm like, I'll drive. I'm always the driver. And because I quite like a long trip.
Yeah.
I like that little, like I said, a little bit of me time, switch off and fucking
But the thing is, I know all my favourite services where I stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got
everywhere now.
Oh my God, yeah, the new rugby ones. Oh, yes, please. Cobham. Oh, lovely. So it's one of those where it's like, if you don't mind driving, that is most of the job. Most of the job is admin and driving.
Yeah.
It's only... And like when you're on tour, I do an hour and 10 minutes on a night on tour. And I would go on tour every other year and do like 20 or 30 tour dates, which are like solo shows.
Yeah.
But I still gig, I do 200 gigs a year pretty much.
Really?
250 a year.
Wow.
And it doesn't bother me, the travelling. Loads of comedians hate it, but I don't mind.
So
at
when
all.
you're touring, is that when it's just your
just my show?
just your
Yeah.
show?
So I take a support act with me, but it'll be my show in like little theatres or a comedy club on an off night. They'll put you in sometimes, and you do like an hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's sort of your audience that have come to see you, which is quite nice.
Have you had any favourite places where you always go down a store?
Liverpool.
Really?
I always sell really well in Liverpool as well.
Do you?
Yeah, one of the best places I sell. I always sort of fill whatever venue I'm in. Even though
Scousers have got great humour though.
They do, and I gig up here a lot. Like January, February, March, I did 11 shows in Liverpool at comedy clubs. So yeah, I always have gigged a lot up here. I love it. Loads of comedians don't like it because Scousers are funny.
Yeah.
So if you're not funny, they will let you know.
Yeah.
So loads of comics I don't do Liverpool on tour. They won't come near it. And there's also that inverse thing of there's lots of famous Scousers who are like, there's comics that can sell tickets here but nowhere else. Really? Like there's a few Scouse comics, and it's sort of its own little ecosystem.
Yeah.
Because they really support their own, whereas nowhere else does that. But it depends. Like I've had some shockers on tour in towns and then gone back a year later and had a lovely time.
It's mad, isn't it? Do you think it just depends on the type of audience that they're in?
Type of audience, type of venue. So I tend to do all right in like little art centres and stuff. Comedy clubs I do all right. But every so often, like I'd never sell any tickets in Harrogate. Like somewhere like that, they're just not... Because they listen to Radio 4, they're posh, aren't they? They're not watching a lot of ITV2. And that's what I need for my audience to... they've not seen Coach Trip. So that's why... That's why they don't know what Coach Trip is. So places where there's some scummy people, then that's where I do well. The kind of people who watch Coach Trip. You've done Coach Trip, haven't you?
No, I was supposed to do it with Sketch from Tattoo Fixes a couple of years ago.
I thought you'd done it.
And then he had some stuff going on and he couldn't do it, so we didn't end up doing it. But yeah, I think I might have. When did you do it?
I did it. So January was our series. I did it at the end of last year.
Oh right, no, it was a couple of years ago. It was before.
There was
COVID.
some other, like loads of comedians have done it. It's a long old shoot.
Is it?
It's hard work.
How long do you go away for?
Well, it depends on when you get voted off. So me and my mate Will, who I did it with, Will Best, a presenter, who's very good. We do the Red Bull soapbox race together on Dave. After 4 days, we were like, vote us out. You get paid the same no matter how long you're in it. We're like, get us out of here. There's only so many more times I can listen to a story from Paul Danan, which is clearly made up.
So I've never fully watched it. Like you get on a coach, you just drive around somewhere.
And you go and do activities, or do you go and do pottery classes?
Is it fun though? It must be fun.
At moments.
Moments of it of fun.
So it's long days. It's like 7 a.m. till 11 p.m.
Really?
On camera, which I've never done. So I've worked on reality shows, but I've never been the other side. Well, I say that I was on Dancing on Ice for a minute and a half.
Yeah.
But that kind of thing where it's like you're in the same area as someone and they want fallouts and things like that. It was really weird.
Really?
I wasn't used to it. It's a different vibe.
Yeah.
A bit like when you did a Haunted Mansion. I've done things where it's like you go and do an activity, but you all get on and they're not bothered about you not getting on.
Yeah.
Whereas all of a sudden, like someone votes for you the night before and they're like, how do you feel about that? And I'm like, I couldn't care less. Like, it's a game, it's a TV show. Like I don't mind. And they're like, we're not going to use that. You need to like at least pretend that you're bothered.
Yeah, it's mad.
And
isn't it?
just I have no respect for any of these people.
So I don't care.
There's been a pandemic and I had a tax bill. Like, give a shit. Like, come on. Like, but people on our series, like we were kind of. When people voted for us, we were like, okay, it's part of the show. You've got to vote for each other. We weren't offended. We never met these people before.
Did people get actually offended on it?
People would get like...
I'd be the same as you. I wouldn't care.
It's part of the show. We knew what we were signing up for. And also one of those things, very much, the shorter you're there, the better your day rate.
Yeah.
So it's fine. But people getting really upset about it. Like, Paul Danan would be like, if someone voted for him, there'd be like storm-offs. And the guy he was with, Ashley, who was this Olympian, who I didn't particularly get on with, who would like, in the bar, he'd be like, we would never vote for you, so you never vote for us. There's loyalty. And then the next day in the vote, they're voting for you. And you're like, what is going on here? What is all this palace intrigue about this? Rather than just, because we were voting people going, oh, well, we've not voted for you yet and we need to vote for someone. And even that would upset people. They'd be like, well, that's not fair. Like, should have a better reason to vote for someone else. We're like,
people are crazy, man, aren't they? Like, I don't understand it.
No.
I just don't get it.
I very much see this is a job, right? I love my job, but it's a job.
Yeah.
It's Coach Trip. It's not winning the jungle, which, can turn you into a megastar.
Yeah.
Like, winning Coach Trip isn't getting you onto primetime Channel 4. It just isn't, And so I think people were really like, one person was like, yeah, I really want to win this because I've heard they're looking for a new Love Island presenter, and I just think if I win this, and I'm like, it's not even the same channel, you dickhead. Like, they're not going to nick someone who's won a show on E4 for an ITV2 show. You're not. What planet are you on?
It's mad where people's minds go, isn't it?
Yeah, because you must have. I've done things as well. Like, it's like when The Apprentice, it's like every year when an Apprentice contestant tries to get famous. And I'm always like, yeah, come on, mate. Absolutely not. You must have had people on tattoo fixers who've come on for a tattoo and then have looked for the next thing, like wanted to be, like, have you looked for that as their way into the industry, you know?
Yeah, it's mad. When I got the call for tattoo fixers, I didn't really think about doing anything else. I just was just doing the one program. And obviously, other things come as a
and you go, oh, that's quite a good bit of money.
Yeah, there's a lot of things you go, oh yeah, I'll do that. And other things you go, no way.
But it's that weird thing, I think, where you've got a skill.
Yeah.
Right. And I find that people that come into this, like, it be it comedians, singers, or anything, that have like a thing that they're just like, well, if I do that, maybe I'll get more work doing the thing that I do.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it. I do TV to get more comedy work.
Yeah.
And I imagine tattoo fixes, you're like, it'll make me a really well-known tattoo artist.
Yeah.
Therefore, I'll get bookings.
Yeah.
And but it's when you get people that go on those shows or go on like The Apprentice or something, and you're like, but what are you doing this in aid of? And oh, nothing, just to be on it.
I think that, like you said, it's exactly the same thing what you said. You're doing it because you're talented and you've got a talent with the comedy and stuff like that. And I think if you go into TV and get into that world of fame and you haven't got anything like that, it's not a nice world, I don't think.
No, absolutely isn't. It's really tricky.
Because I think you're gonna, you then, it's hard. If you were, I don't know, had a normal job working in Asda and you get on some TV show and become famous, if nothing else happens for you after that one show you've been on, it's a very, how do I put this? It's like they're always chasing the next thing because they've been somebody and then they can't face going back to being someone normal again.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than seeing a Love Islander who lasted 3 days, like trying to sustain that. You just because they don't have a thing to sell.
Yeah,
you're selling yourself as a business, and it's essentially the same for me, right?
Yeah.
And I think it is really tricky. And you meet a lot of these reality stars, and it's brutal because I remember years ago when like when Love Island came along and got massive again, I'd go and do a job and there'd be a Towie person there or a Geordie Shore person there.
Yeah.
And they're all really pleasant people.
Yeah.
But they were going, oh, our club bookings have gone through the floor because they just want Love Islanders now.
Yeah.
And because they're not like, well, I can go back and do tattoos or I can go back into the comedy clubs or write in songs.
Yeah.
They're just like, that's the bread and butter of them being them.
Yeah.
And if you're getting rejected for that, that's quite difficult, I think.
Yeah, but then rejected is quite the right word because then they feel as like that's where their self-worth like devalues, and that's where I think a lot of these people are having what they're saying is mental health problems because their value of themselves has been
it's attached to something.
By what they think other people
attached
think
to
of them.
something which is ruthless as well. Like if your value is right, people like me because I was on this show and I was good on the show, and then all of a sudden like things stop happening for you. Of course, your self-worth is going to crash around you.
Yeah,
and I think that's why there are so many issues, in the reality community.
Yeah,
but it is weird because then also you have to, if you're your product and people are stopping being interesting, I think there's the natural thing to go, well, I'm going to talk about this thing which is really private.
Yeah.
And then you expose yourself to that and people give you loads of abuse for talking about, whatever it may be, your personal problems, because the only thing you're selling is your own life.
Yeah.
And that's tricky. Whereas, you don't ever go and like sell anything about your life. And I just do it on stage.
Yeah.
That's where I give out all my intimate secrets. And most of them are made up.
A live audience.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll do it for a very low price. But just for an exclusive group.
How have you found fame since?
Well, I'm at a really nice level of it.
Yeah.
In that I'm not really famous. I'm sort of the level of fame that, like, I get stopped a few times a week by people going, you're that comedian.
Yeah.
They don't even know my name. It's great.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sort of at that weird, people recognise me but don't know why.
Really?
That's the level I exist on. Whereas I don't think I'd mind being really famous would, I think, looks awful.
Yeah.
And I've got some friends, like a friend of mine who's a comedian, we went out for lunch, Sarah Millican, who's very, very brilliant. And she's really famous. And and I think it, in some ways it impacts her life because like people stop her all the time and you're like, I just want to get things done today.
Yeah.
Or like to be Ramesh Ranganathan must be like a pain because it's not like he's not, an inconspicuous guy. He looks very much like Ramesh Ranganathan all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm at a great level.
Yeah.
People stop me every now and then, like a few times a week. Or if I'm at a comedy club, people will come up and be like, oh, we came because you were on.
Yeah,
but
that's
they're never,
nice, isn't it?
But they're never like dicks about it, really.
Yeah, I think there's a fine balance with the fame thing, isn't there? Because like you said, I couldn't imagine being like when you look at Conor McGregor and Justin Bieber and all these people, I would hate that level of fame.
Yeah, like I think as a comic as well, like you've got to live a relatively normal life.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong, like I get all the perks and none of the bad things. Like I get to go to lots of nice stuff for free. I get to kind of like do really interesting things, but I'm never bothered. And if people bother me, they're like, oh, I don't even know your name. Or they think I'm Matt Edmondson. That happens all the time. Even my cousin the other day, I went to see my cousin and she was like, oh, I've just been really laughing at Dress to Impress on ITV2. And I was like, because Matt Edmondson does the voiceover on it. And I was like, you do know that isn't me, don't you? And she went, I've been watching that show for years thinking it was you. She didn't know it wasn't me. And we're related.
Oh my God.
So I'm at that level. So people sort of, it's perfect. It's great.
Well, it's the same for me because I have people mistake me for other people as well.
Who'd you get mistaken for?
So I went to the UFC London a few weeks back and I went to a party there and this lad came up to me and he went, oh, mate, he goes, my missus fucking loves your show. And I went, yeah? And he goes, yeah, she fucking watches it every night. She's obsessed with you. And I went, oh yeah? She goes, yeah, fucking loves Hollyoaks. I was like, I'm not a Hollyoaks,
but
mate.
The thing is as well, I think the problem with Liverpool and like this part of the world is everyone looks famous because they all make an effort. So like when I go out in Liverpool or like even Newcastle, you're like, I think they're on Geordie Shore. They're not. They've just bothered. That's basically what it is. And you're very well turned out man and things like. If I saw you walk into a room and I didn't know you, I'd go, I think he's probably on the telly. You've just got that air about you, that confidence.
Thanks.
But it's sort of a perfect level, really. Like people buy things I do. People like it when I do things. I get asked to do stuff. I get asked to do nice stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm never like harassed and things. You know, I'm at a very nice level.
That is nice. That's
like I left a restaurant the other day and someone went, Matt Richardson, love your work. And you're just like, cool, great. But that's it really. Like I don't get...
Could you know what? Whenever I get stopped for anything, it's always nice, positive stuff because they like my tattoo work or whatever. Or they love tattoo fixers. It's always been nice stuff.
Yeah.
And then I've been asked to do some other shows like some dating shows and I've been like, nah.
Did you get asked to do Celebs Go Dating?
Yeah, I said no to that.
I got asked to do it as well, but I've got a girlfriend. And there was a thing of going, do I do this just for the exposure and the money? But she wasn't very happy about that conversation.
Just date a load of women.
Yeah. Well, but I didn't have to, just go, the dates went badly and then go back to her. But no, like it's a good thing to do. But I guess, you're looking at it going, okay, it sort of sends you in a slightly different direction, doesn't it? And if you're trying to do things that stay true to your art.
That's it.
That's the difference.
And again, I think it's managing that fame thing as well because, like I said, if I go out, people come to me and go, oh, Jay, I love your work. I love tattoo fixes, whatever. Yeah. If I start going down the reality TV route like that, depending on what it is, it's a bit like, I don't know, you're opening certain parts of your life that you think, I'm not into doing that.
You know what? It's that thing of like, my private life, I wouldn't say it's necessarily private. Like I post on Instagram, like I'm not, but it's, and I talk about it on stage, but as soon as you go on those shows, they can dig and do all that. I think it's like an invite to go, I'm cool doing this, so therefore you can... A dating show especially, they go into all your private life and your dating life. And I think that's a can of worms that I'm not willing to open, really. Like I could do a line off the Sun's front desk in their office and no one would bat an eyelid. And I like that's where I live my life. Like no one would go, well, we're running this story. It'd just be like, I think that's Matt Edmondson.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, Matt Edmondson's been here of Radio 1.
Well, it's funny. I was out a few weeks ago in Chester and I was out with my mate and I could see these girls were looking at me and I thought, oh, maybe they've watched Tattoo Fixers and I could see them whispering. I could hear them, one of them going, ask him. I thought, oh, God, they're going to ask in a second. She went, excuse me, are you Ant Middleton off SAS? I should have said, I should have gone, yes, I am. I was like, no, and she went,
you don't even really look like Ant Middleton.
I get it a lot, and I don't think I look like him. It's just a beard.
You're on telly and you've got a beard. That's basically it, isn't it? People don't really... And the worst bit is, I mean, look, not to talk about, really unrelatable things like getting recognised, but the worst bit is the bit where people are discussing whether or not you're you or whether or not it's worth coming up to you. Yeah. And you're aware of that conversation where they're all going, oh, blah, blah, it's that. And they're going, oh, it doesn't matter. I remember being on the tube once and I had my headphones in, but my phone had run out of battery, but I hadn't taken them out, right? Yeah. And there was this group sat opposite me. This is years ago now. And they were going, that's that bloke. And I sort of sat with like this, like with my eyes closed, my headphones, but I could hear them. And they're going, that's he's that guy off telly, isn't he? And there was 2 girls, there was 3 of them, but 2 of them were having an argument about if I was me or not. She's going, no, it isn't him. The other was going, yeah, it is him. And then after about 2 minutes, their friend came in and went, I don't give a fuck what shit Z-list celebrity is on the tube, all right? And I was just sat there going, I can't even, oh, God.
Oh, my God.
So, yeah, that's the worst bit is when people are, like, you can see them working out if it's worth coming up to you or not.
I had the worst. I did a PA. When I was on Total Fix, I did a PA in a nightclub, yeah?
Yeah.
So I was in this room and then they were letting these people come through and this girl walks in, I'm stood there and she looks me up and down and she goes, I said, "You're right." She goes, "You're a lot shorter in real life." And I went, disappointed in it. And she went, "Yeah." And I was like, all right. And then she just stood there looking at me and her mate went, "Well, have a picture with him then." She went, "No." She left.
Did you do a lot of those PAs?
At the time, yeah.
They were a real thing, weren't they, for a while?
Yeah, like we didn't know anything about it, so...
I mean, mate, it's free money.
Yeah,
I don't think they do them as much anymore. I don't think there's such a thing.
No, it doesn't seem... I don't know if that's because of the COVID thing happened and it just changed things, but...
I mean, I've got a couple of mates who are like reality stars and they bought houses from their PAs.
Yeah.
Like they were doing like 3 a night and like just making an absolute bomb.
It's mad, isn't it? It was so mad.
Yeah.
I didn't even understand it because at first they were like, so-and-so want you in this club this weekend. I was like, to do what? And they were like, have pictures of people. I was like, what, people want pictures with us? And he was like, yeah. And he was like, all right, and they'll give you this amount of money. I was like,
free booze all night.
It's an hour. And then they go, yeah, free night, VIP. I thought, I'm getting paid to have a night out. And they were like, yeah. And I'm like,
yes.
Fuck yeah. Like, do you know how many clubs I've been turned away from for years? Can't get in. Queued up for hours. They go, not tonight, mate, not your night. And I'm like, what? Now they're paying me to go there.
I never did any PAs. I caught the tail end of the anyone can DJ phase, where basically I met this DJ agent through a friend of mine who was on Radio 1. Jamila Jamil, who's now like an international Hollywood star, but when she was on Radio 1, I was in Edinburgh with her and she was like, "Oh, this is my DJ agent," and he was like, "Oh, right, nice to meet you." He goes, "Can you DJ?" And I went, "No." He goes, "That's not a problem." And he went, "We can sort that out, we'll teach you." And he went because a lot of the Radio 1 guys, they go out for like $8,000 a pop to go and do an hour. And he was like, we get loads of requests in for like $1,000 or 1,500 quid and no one wants them. Would you be interested? And I basically spent 2 years hoovering up all the gigs the Radio 1 lot didn't want.
Really?
And I paid my rent with it. Like,
really?
What, do 1 a month? And you're like, that's that done?
Yeah.
Lovely. It was fucking great. And I just go out and like play an hour of tunes, and they'd get you as much. They were like, "What's your rider?" And I'd be like, "Oh, I don't have a rider." And they're like, "When I go on tour it's 2 bottles of water. That's it, right? I'm not interested." And they're like, "No, they'll pay for like booze, food, whatever you want." And you're like, "Oh, well, I have like 8 beers," and they're like, "You can do better than that." So it'd be like 8 beers and a bottle of vodka and all the mixes. And then I just take 3 mates with me, and because they'd always give you 2 hotel rooms. Like, that was the thing. So we used to just go out and get absolutely leathered at every shit university in the country.
Oh my God, I need to get on this. I used to be a DJ.
Did you?
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't really happen anymore. They got a point
bastards.
where they sort of worked out they didn't need to spend $8,000 on Scott Mills to get people in a nightclub at a university. So they stopped doing it. But yeah, there was a point where, like, you know, I was going to like, you know, people doing all the big uni ones, and I was like, Manchester Metropolitan Crew Campus, how you doing? And you do an hour.
That's
absolutely brilliant. Get absolutely off your chops. Go to the hotel. It was great.
Yeah.
I used to go and I'd like open a gig. I'd do a gig in London, jump on the train and go and DJ at 1 a.m. in Manchester. It was brilliant.
Amazing.
When I was like 24, having a great time.
Yeah, I used to DJ in a nightclub when I was 18 for 2 years. It was one of the best times of my life. It was amazing. In a good nightclub. It was like £1 million nightclub. Yeah.
Where was it?
It was in North Wales where I lived. And yeah, it was unreal. We used to have some belter nights there, and I did it for 2 years. I absolutely loved it.
Really? See, I got booked I did a few, like, loads of SUs and a couple of nightclubs. The best one I ever got booked for is I DJ'd the artist area at V Festival one year. They were like, "Oh, can you come?" Mahiki was the nightclub, I think. Oh no, the one in Mahiki's the one in London, like the posh one in Mayfair, like
right.
And they were like, "Oh, they're doing the VIP bit." So I was like DJing with like Calvin Harris there, and I was like, I can't DJ.
Really?
I fundamentally cannot DJ. What I used to do is play one song and then another song and then another.
Yeah.
Like, with just no gaps. That was all I did. And they're like, "Yeah, why?"
Play.
End on Teenage Dirtbag, everyone goes home. And they're like, oh yeah, it's this really cool thing. And they paid me really well. And I was doing the comedy tent anyway at V. And then they were like, and they were paying me shit to do the comedy tent. And they're like, would you like 12 times more money to come and DJ when no one's listening to you? Yes, please.
Yeah, that'd be sound.
My dream job would be a DJ in an Ibiza hotel lobby. You know, the ones that just play like chill house as you're checking in. Those guys, I think, have got a really great...
Yeah.
If it's, you don't notice.
No.
It's a job that doesn't need to exist.
Yeah, and I think as well, when people are drunk, they're a nightmare.
Yeah.
So if you're the DJ, like I was out the other night and there was a DJ and he was in quite an open space where anyone could get to his equipment. And this girl was going up to him and saying, can I press the buttons and all this stuff? And he was like... you know, because she was drunk, he was like, yeah, just press that one. And then but then she was tapping everything. She had a drink and it was spilling.
Oh, no.
Oh, mate. And I remember when I used to DJ and people used to come in and they try and do the same and you'd be like, what's your fucking drink near the equipment? Oh, it was such a ball ache. So yeah, that would be my perfect gig as well.
Yeah.
When no one's there.
Yeah. A DJ at a yoga retreat, something like that, like a really nice chill job would be great.
Yeah, that would be amazing. So let's go back to the comedy a bit.
Sorry.
We've gone way off subject here about our DJing.
Just nice to have a chat.
PA lifestyle. How do you find dealing with hecklers?
So I don't mind. A good heckle it can like make a gig really memorable.
Yeah.
The worst ones are people that are absolutely battered that heckle and make no sense. And heckling doesn't happen that often.
Really?
Like it's this kind of thing where people always go, oh, how'd you deal with it? And you think...
It feels to me like it would happen all the time.
No,
drunk people.
No. So the worst is, the worst on stage, and this is such a boring thing, is groups chatting in the audience and you can hear them, like, but they're not yelling out, but they're just having a chat, like 4 or 5 people, because they're drunk, they've been a bit loud, and that's really distracting.
Yeah.
And like, I used to try and, like, tell them off in a funny way.
Yeah.
Whereas now I just go, I wouldn't come to your work and be this disrespectful.
Yeah.
So don't, like, I'm not even trying to be funny. I'm just like, you just need to be quiet. Like, I can't do my job while you're doing that.
Yeah.
So shut up. And they're like, ugh.
Does it change the atmosphere?
It can. You try and be like nice about it, because and look, I've lost my rag at audience members before. Yeah, because like, especially if there's a group that are chatting and you've told them to be, if you're the compere especially, that's kind of your job, is to keep everyone in control. Yeah. And you've told them 3 or 4 times. I had a massive argument with a woman at a comedy club that I do a lot in Bracknell called the Comedy Cellar, which is brilliant. It's been there for 35 years, this comedy club, once a week. And I was comparing, and she talked through me the first 10 minutes. Brought the first act on, she talked all the way through him. I came on in the second section and I was talking to another audience member, having a bit of banter. We were having it was funny. Everyone was enjoying it.
Yeah.
And she was huffing and puffing about it. And I went, I'm really sorry, but like you're being really disrespectful to your fellow audience members because everyone can hear you. And the acts, like you've talked through everyone. If you want to talk, that's fine. There's a bar upstairs. Feel free to go and sit in the bar and have a chat with your mates. Not an issue. But if you're going to talk, don't be in here. And she went, I see what this is about. You're only talking to me because you want to fuck me. And I went... I was like, sorry, what?
Oh my God.
It was such a it came out of such a weird place. I was like, what is happening here? And then she went, that's what's happening here. And I went, okay. I was like, do you want to do this dance? Because I've done it a lot more times than you and you're not going to come out of it unscathed, right? And she went, yeah, I'm happy to. And then we just sort of I started to sort of tell her how, what an awful person she was. The first thing I said to her, I went, the problem with you is no one in your life has ever told you you're a cunt. And then it went from there because no one had ever told her she was a cunt. And then she emailed, I was on Virgin Radio at the time. She emailed my radio boss, my agent, asking them to drop me because I made her feel threatened in a comedy club. And she said she was taking out a public order offence with the police because her husband was a detective in the Met. She was a weapon, this woman. But she was one of those, you know that she's made every waitress she's ever met in her life's miserable.
Yeah.
She's one of those people. And I've done it before where, certain people, it's like dance for me, monkey boy. And you're like, it's a two-way street, this. You've paid for tickets, but I don't have to work under these conditions.
Yeah.
If you did this in any other job, this would be harassment.
Yeah.
But she was being so awful. And that ruined the gig.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie, that ruined the gig. For me, the other acts had a nice time, but as soon as you drop that veneer of, hey, I'm your friend, I'm going to tell you some awkward stories, especially because there are some comedians like Jimmy Carr and Frankie Boyle who don't have that persona on stage, whereas I'm very much look how likeable and lovely I am, please laugh at me.
Yeah.
So as soon as that drops, everyone goes, oh, this is a bit eggy. But she was being awful, so I had to, if she hadn't said that thing about me wanting to fuck her, I'd have been like, if she'd have just gone... Because I've done it before where people are a bit drunk and they're a bit overexcited and they're chipping in because sometimes you'll tell a story and they'll be like, oh, that happened to me. And you're like, yeah, no one cares that it happened to you. What they want to hear is the thing that I've been working on for 5 years as a piece of material, not your shit story. But they're not, it's not coming from a nasty place.
Yeah, no, of course.
My problem is, and like I had a girl in the audience just before Christmas. Christmas is the worst time. All the Christmas parties that come in. And she was really drunk. And every time I said something, she was like, love that bit. And like was talking to me about the bits I was doing.
Yeah.
And it was that thing of, it wasn't horrible to her because I was like, you're having a really nice evening.
Yeah.
It's just a bit too much.
It's over the top.
But I know that the next day she'd have woken up and been like, oh my God, that was really embarrassing. It's the people that wake up and think that they were in the right and you were in the wrong.
Yeah.
And they never are.
There's so many of them though.
Yeah. Like that woman, she like emailing my radio job being like, you need to take him off air because he was offensive because he said the word cunt in a comedy club.
Do you know what I think? Some people like that, they have this almost entitled way of thinking where they come there and think, I've paid money, you've got to make me laugh, and if you're not making me laugh, then you piss me off.
But also
they want to have a little dig at you.
But I wasn't even saying like, I'm going to make you, I was just like, can you stop talking because it's distracting for the people that have also paid.
Yeah.
It's like I did a gig, God, I mean, talking about bad gigs, I do a lot of bad gigs. It happens more often than I think. Like there was a group talking, a group of 25 that came to this gig and they were talking and they were being quite aggressive when they were told to stop. And we had to, I was on last. I didn't even get to the stage because they stopped the gig and went, we're going to have a quick break while we sort this group out. And they went, look, if you don't either leave or stop talking, we're going to have to cancel the show. Yeah. And they were like, cancel it then. So they cancelled the gig because they couldn't remove these 25 people and they wouldn't go. And it was like that. You're like, it's not disregard for us. I still got paid. I don't care. But like the rest of the audience who'd got babysitters, come out, travelled, all that, they just didn't care about. And you think that's becoming more common, that kind of mentality.
Bloody hell. I'm surprised there was
I want to do this how I... Well, I mean, they got the police in, but like the two smallest policemen I've ever seen came in. I think one of them was you.
It's me dressed as a copper.
He's far away. Oh no, he's tiny.
He's 5'2", this copper.
Yeah, God, jeez. But like that, and you just think it was more about like there was no respect for their fellow audience members rather than us.
Yeah, it's. I've been in audiences like that where you think that you know, have some respect for the people that come to watch.
Exactly, and also there's a point where they are always misguided. When you tell them to shut up and they yell something back at you, you go, you do know that no one's on your side here.
Yeah.
Everyone's on my side because like you're annoying everyone else.
Yeah.
And you know, some of these rooms, everyone's packed in so tight, it's really easy to hear them wherever you are. You know, they're not big rooms.
Yeah.
So that's more of that's become more of a problem post-lockdown as well. People have sort of, it's getting a bit better now, but when we first came out, people had sort of forgotten how to behave a bit.
Yeah.
In a group situation like that.
Yeah.
So people were chatting in a way that they chat because they've been at home for 2 years.
Yeah.
Which is understandable, but you know,
getting overexcited.
We had to sort of retrain audiences a little bit.
Yeah, I bet. How are you as a comic? How are you finding like everything's too PC now? So yeah, I think comedians have one of the hardest jobs, especially in this day and age now, because there's people like back in the day, like I was watching a Frankie Boyle DVD and I thought, fucking hell, I don't think he'd get away with letting this out in this day and age.
Yeah, you know what? But then there's loads of comics who are sort of pushing those boundaries still, like the boys on the Have a Word podcast.
Right, yeah.
That's kind of their shtick, isn't it? They're sort of saying things, and they've got a massive audience. You know, they're doing the Liverpool Arena, I think, as a podcast record, you know. But the thing is, it's not so much if you can build an audience where they know you do that.
Yeah.
I'm not a particularly un-PC comic.
Yeah.
I've got one bit that the other day a girl accused me of being racist.
Really?
Yeah, because she left halfway through the bit.
Yeah.
So it was me talking about how I am white. I don't want to shock anyone here. I'm a white guy. But you know, anyone listening that thinks, God, he sounds he definitely sounds like a white guy, but I'm not sure. I'm a white guy, and I've got a bit about not wanting to be a white guy. So I took a heritage DNA test, right? Because you know, if I'm just a bit black, that sort of takes away a lot of the badness of being a middle class white man. And the whole thing ends in a joke that it's making fun of people doing that rather than. But this girl, the girl left at the beginning of it, and then she came up to me and she's like, "Well, I thought that bit was I left because it was racist." And I was like, "Well, no, you left before I'd explained it."
Yeah.
So then she was getting really eggy with me, and I was like, "Look, the whole joke is eventually about me being a third Scandinavian because I was conceived on an IKEA bed. Like it's not even about race really, but it's just about the privilege of going. Well, I'm doing a DNA test to see if I'm a bit black. You know, that white privilege. But she sort of had a go at me, and I was like, "Oh, mate, you wanted to be upset by it, so you were."
Yeah.
No matter what I was going to say, you were going to be upset.
Looking to be offended.
Yeah, I don't get it much just because I don't talk about hot button topics particularly. Like most of my stuff is personal stories that I've just put jokes into.
Where do you think it'll go from here though? Because surely at some point this whole you can't say this and you can't say that will go on for, let's say, maybe a few more years. But at some point, people are going to get fed up of it, of not being able to say what they want to say.
Totally.
That doesn't mean you've got to be offensive.
No, God, no. But
Just
also,
not trying to find offensive things in unoffensive things.
There's a really good comic called Steve Hughes who talks about offence on stage, and he says, someone comes up to me and goes, "I was offended." He goes, "Be offended."
Yeah.
Like that's you're right. You can be offended. Like that's your right. But it doesn't. Why make that?
It's the cancelling thing, isn't it?
It's and things like I get offended by things, right?
Yeah.
But when I get offended by something, I go, I found that offensive, so that's my problem.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make that the guy who said it's problem.
No.
If it's a friend of mine that says something that's got a dodgy opinion, I go, well, I'm going to address this because we're friends. But if I watch TV and someone's got an opinion I don't agree with, I just go, well, there are 500 channels.
Yeah.
And also, I'm a big believer in, if you try and push those opinions that are unsavoury under the surface, that's much more dangerous.
It is.
Like racism and, misogyny, when people feel like they're pushed to the sides, that's when you get incels and all that happening.
Yeah.
Whereas if you let them express their opinions and, there's a back and forth about it, that's when people learn.
Yeah.
So I think if you do find something offensive, you're allowed to find it offensive. Fucking good for you. Yeah. Everyone's got things that we find offensive.
Yeah.
And also, it's that thing of, you can make jokes about anything except the one thing that affects me.
Yeah.
That's what offence is, essentially.
It's almost an entitlement that everyone thinks they've got now because they think that...
Well, I was offended and everyone needs to know that. Yeah. I get offended all the time and I just go, I'm going to swallow it because that's my problem, not their problem.
And I think that social media's not helping because what social media's done is give everyone a voice.
Oh, God, yeah.
And so you can write whatever you want on it and everyone likes to tell everyone how offended they are by everything and social media are almost condoning it as well because it's like they're afraid, like I was just saying to you off camera I wrote that status about the guy who was harassing Mike Tyson. And basically all I said was he was being harassed on a plane by a guy who's being completely disrespectful for no apparent reason. And at the end of the day, if you're going to do that for no reason, then you deserve a smack in the mouth.
Yeah.
I got a message off Facebook saying this is inciting violence and all that. And I'm like, well, he deserves a smack in the mouth. He got one.
Yeah,
he does.
And
that's what I believe.
If you're going to harass a heavyweight boxer,
you want to.
It's going to happen.
Yeah, you can't. Like Mike Tyson's been through some hell in his life. Like he lost his daughter. He's been through all sorts of things. It's all public. Everyone knows that. Knows what type of violent man he's been in his life, and you want to prod him because you think he can't do anything because he's famous. Yeah. Well, he did. Because he's naturally a born
let's all remember, Mike Tyson has also been to prison before. Like, I think he'll do it again. Do you know what I mean? Reoffending rates in America are very high. Yeah. But it's
for me, it's about the people thinking that they can film stuff, be funny, and get away with it because they're filming it because this guy can't do anything.
My whole thing with it is someone says something you don't like. Why do you need there to be consequences to that?
Yeah.
Like, there's plenty of people that say things I don't like, and I go, well, I don't like it.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, and what I do is I keep it to myself. I don't tweet about. The other thing that blows my mind is and I get messages of, when I'm on TV and people are like, I cannot bear blah blah blah. I hate this show, and I'm like, I hate loads of TV. I just turn it over.
Yeah.
Like that. Why do you need to let me know? What?
Yeah. It's so true. Like, why? Just switch it off.
And I think that's the thing is there are lots of people who've got unsavoury opinion. Look, and there's loads of people I think are, genuine racists and all that, and that's a whole other story. But jokes are all about context as well. If you take a joke off of the stage and print it, then it's going to be offensive to people. And it's like the whole Jimmy Carr joke with, his joke about the Holocaust that caused loads of problems recently. Within that show, the context of it, he was going, I'm going to say something that is very offensive. The point of what I'm going to do now is to try and overstep the mark, right? Yeah. And in the room, or if you're a Jimmy Carr fan and you're watching that, you expect that from Jimmy Carr. Yeah. Right? He's been doing it for 25 years. That's literally how he's made millions.
Yeah.
Whereas as soon as you print that in a paper, you're showing that to people who don't want to see that because they're not Jimmy Carr fans.
Yeah.
So of course they're going to be offended because they didn't buy tickets for the gig. Yeah. Or they didn't watch the DVD.
Yeah.
So because they're not Jimmy Carr fans, they wouldn't want that.
Yeah.
And then so I think, it's that thing of, I've got a lot of jokes that aren't, I don't think my comedy club, my set's offensive. Yeah. If I did it at a kid's party, it's offensive. It's all about context.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's the whole thing is, when people start to pick jokes apart, they do it in an arena where it's never going to be funny.
Yeah.
And quite often someone will say something really offensive, but if it's really funny, you don't really care because it's made you laugh.
Yeah.
And it's that release of the offensive thing, whereas you don't have that in black and white.
And I just think comedy is one of the ways that I think a lot of people pull themselves through dark times. Like picking out humour out of dark things.
Totally. And look, I think if you speak to anyone like who is in a job that is difficult, like doctors, nurses, police officers, people in the army, they all have a real gallows humour about it.
Yeah.
Like, not to use him as an example again, but Jimmy Carr made a joke about, years ago about the war in Afghanistan, meaning we'll have a great Paralympics team, right? And he got him in loads of trouble, right? And I think, that joke is offensive, right?
Yeah.
When printed down, everyone in the army was like, it's the kind of thing we say. Like, that's the kind of thing, if we see him make that joke, we laugh because, and I've had people come up to me at gigs and at shows where they sort of have some, they are in a wheelchair maybe or, something like that. And they go, oh, feel free to say what you like about me, mate. And I'm like, are you mad?
Yeah.
I'm absolutely not going to do that.
Yeah.
But they're desperate because they make jokes about it themselves, you know, and they want to feel like it's a normal thing, right?
Yeah.
If you avoid it, that makes them feel like you're putting them in this sort of weird pedestal that's different. Everyone just wants to feel the same.
It's about creating light in the dark times, isn't it?
Totally.
And that's what I think comedy is there. That's what it's there for.
I think the problem quite often is it takes a really skilled comedian to do that.
Yeah.
And you get a lot of not very good comedians having a go.
Yeah.
And I've never been like an offensive comic or made jokes about edgy subjects because I've not written a joke funny enough.
Right.
If I write a joke funny enough about an edgy subject, I'll do the joke, but it's just never happened.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to sit around going, I'm going to purposefully write a joke about sexual assault. Like, that's not how comics think. The joke comes and you're like, oh, but it's about that subject.
Yeah.
The problem is, as well, is with comedy, you don't think people will be upset by that. You think, oh, but it's a good joke, though. It's almost irrelevant what it's about. If the joke's good, you're going to do it.
Yeah.
It's like being an addict almost.
Yeah.
Oh, but it gets a good... I've had jokes where people have gone, you shouldn't do that. And I'm like, yeah, but it gets a really good laugh.
Yeah.
And you can't help yourself.
Yeah.
You need that laugh. You're chasing it. So, and I do gigs where I'm like, they're not going to like this. And I'm like, but I love it.
Really?
Yeah. Because it gets a good laugh.
And have you ever done a gig where you think, I'm not sure how they're going to take this? Maybe I don't know if it's going to go down well at all, and you're pretty certain it's not, and then you do it and you think, wow, it really
every gig you do in sort of quite a middle-class Tory area, you think you're a bit of filth, they love it.
Really?
Yeah, they're all sat there all very, like in their scarves and sort of, there's a load of Land Rovers outside and you're like, oh, they're going to hate me. And then I go on and I'm like doing loads of wank jokes and they're like absolutely howling. Upper middle class, middle-aged people are the best for a bit of filth.
Really?
Yeah, they're more like ruddy-faced and they are. They love it.
Do they?
Oh, God, yeah, they love a wank joke. But you think you go to Chipping Norton and it's going to be like well-to-do. Absolutely not. They're filth.
That's about it. I can imagine, to be fair.
Yeah. But quite
because they put on a persona that they're all posh and whatnot, but they're all probably doing the same thing. Everyone's
they all
doing
went to boarding school and used to lean their balls on people's heads and stuff like it was the Wild West. So they like, it's sometimes like that. But then other times you go and do gigs that you think, oh, they're going to love this, and then they don't. It's weird. There's a really good quote about people are idiots, crowds are intelligent. And so, you'll meet a crowd and you'll go on stage and they collectively, even though they don't know each other and stuff, decide what they don't like. It's really strange, like the mentality of a crowd.
Yeah, it is strange, isn't it? Last question I've got for you.
All right,
I've got to ask you this because it's obviously been going around. The Will Smith thing.
Oh, yeah.
What's your opinion on it?
Well, I mean, it's really interesting. So I just thought, I can't believe Will Smith was so short-sighted that wasn't going to ruin his career.
Yeah.
Because Will Smith, once again, he's this charming, likeable everyman, right? That's why everyone loves him. And then he goes up and slaps a guy. Also, Will Smith laughed at it, then looked at Jada and then went, I better do something about this. But I just think it was such a stupid move on his part. Yeah. As a comic, there was kind of a bit of talk amongst comedians that were like, oh, is this going to make people think that this is okay?
Yeah.
Dave Chappelle's did you see today?
I've heard something
last night. Dave Chappelle was wrestled to the ground by an audience member who's tackled on stage. I don't know what the context is yet. They haven't said yet, but and you think, would that have happened pre the Chris Rock Will Smith moment?
No, that's it, isn't it?
Yeah. The guy had a gun.
What? Who wrestled Dave Chappelle? Really?
Jeez.
Fuck, really?
Yeah, and like Dave Chappelle, a very controversial man. Like, it just essentially wrote a whole show about how he doesn't like trans people.
Right.
And, you're making a statement there, aren't you? Yeah. So, you're going to expect some blowback. But, violence isn't the answer. I just thought it was childish of Will Smith.
I just don't get it.
What I would have done is,
don't get it.
On the walk, there was a long enough walk to Chris Rock for him to go, this is a bad idea.
Yeah. He was laughing about it. I think as well, like, he's looked at his missus and she's not happy.
There's a lot going on there. I've just read his autobiography, Will Smith, and it's brilliant.
Really?
It's fascinating because it's all about how it's never enough for him. Like, I remember in a bit he talks about I Am Legend, and he's like, oh my God, they opened, it was the biggest opening in American cinema at the time. They opened to $79 million the first day. And the first thing he said on the phone is, why wasn't it 80? Really? Even though it broke all the records and all that. And he talks a lot about his psychology of how he's been trying to fill a hole, basically. And he talks about his marriage, about how Jada sat him down once and went, you're never going to make me happy, and all this. So I think there's a lot of weird, and I mean, we've all seen that Red Table Talk where she's talking about why she had an affair and stuff. I think
I know
there's a lot more going on there that I'm not qualified to comment on.
Yeah.
But I just thought, like, as I was walking up to Chris Rock, I'd be like, right, You've had 3 seconds of walk. Let's maybe give him a cuddle or something, or or like shadow box him. Like, let's try and do something silly.
It's like his mind's been warped over a lot of things, and I think his head went, and he can't have been thinking straight.
But also, like, he won an Oscar that night, and it's ruined that. It's his first one and everything, and
it's ruined it for everyone else that was there, because no one will remember who got an Oscar. I don't remember who got an Oscar that night.
No, who cares?
No one cares, do they?
It's Yeah, I think when Chris Rock talks about it properly, it'll be really interesting.
Yeah.
But I don't know when that's going to happen, or if that's going to happen. But, I've been at gigs where people have tried to get on the stage and there's been security there.
Really?
I've been at gigs where security haven't intervened quick enough and things have escalated to a point where that could have happened. But if it opens the floodgates for people or not, I don't know if I'm looking too much into it because I'm on stage 5 nights a week. But you do go, oh, is this going to be a thing that people think is okay now?
Yeah.
Not because they go, well, Will Smith did it, but it's just that's a barrier that's now been broken down.
Yeah, it's like, if I find it offensive what you said, well, I can come punch you in the face.
Well, I had a gig where just before Christmas 2019, once again Christmas, and this guy was being really. I was hosting this gig in Birmingham, and this guy. There was a big group only on a Christmas party and they hadn't sat down yet. And I went on stage and went, look, we don't start, welcome to the show. If you want to take a seat, we're going to start. I'm on stage, but I'm not going to bring any acts on or anything until you're all sat down and we're all sorted, right? And these guys at the front, these middle-aged guys are going, tell us a fucking joke. And I was like, I'm not going to tell you a joke till you all sit down. Hey, Yeah. And then they were going, you're a prick and all this. And I was saying things back to them. And it was going back and forth. And at one point, this guy took offence, even though he'd started it, to what I'd said. And he tried to get on the stage to hit me. And I was watching it in slow motion in my head going, I'm going to get punched. This is terrifying. And a bouncer stopped him and tapped him on the shoulder just to kind of distract him. And he turned around and headbutted the bouncer and called him a racial slur. And,
oh my God.
And when I say, when you watch a Western film and a bar fight breaks out, like someone breaks a glass and just like everything happens, that happened in the middle of this gig, right? Sure. People were pulling him off, like he was hitting people he worked with. The police were called, an armed police unit came, he got arrested.
Fuck.
And he's just like, oh yeah. And the gig got pulled. But I was just like, oh.
Wow.
And he was and people coming up to me who worked with him and like, he's the managing director, he's an arsehole, don't worry. So I'm glad I told him his wife was definitely fucking her yoga instructor that night instead of being with him. But it's, you're like, oh, it's a job where you go very quickly, you're like, oh, they're going to hit me over words. This is a bit, and like, I didn't think I'd said anything bad because he was being rude to me first. Like, I didn't go, you there.
Yeah.
You're a bellend. Like, I wasn't being like, but I think maybe that'll happen more. As we get a more polarised society and people think, being upset is enough. I don't know though, but I just tried to keep everyone happy.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't happen.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah, fucking hell, for your own sake.
I think if I get punched on stage, that's me done. I think
that's comedy done for me.
Yeah, I think that's the end of the road.
I think if that type of shit starts happening, that's comedy done for good.
Yeah, but it's happened before. Jim Jeffries got punched on stage at the Comedy Store in Manchester years ago.
Really?
Yeah. So it's like things like that have happened, but who knows? I just think Will Smith. Why didn't his PR guy chase him down and go, this is a bad idea?
If you were his PR guy, would you have ever thought he'd do that, though? Mate, I actually, when I saw the clip and I thought he was going up to him, I thought he was going to put him in a headlock or something and just be a joke. Like,
yeah, kind of like, but he was...
And then when I saw the clip, I thought the slap was a joke as well. I thought that didn't look very real. And then afterwards I thought, fuck, that was real. Like, he was actually kicking off.
Yeah, it's weird. The whole thing was weird, wasn't it?
I had to watch it like 15 times to go, fuck, that actually happened.
Well, because there's a whole thing of like, was Chris Rock in on it? Was this kind of a thing?
Yeah.
But no, I don't. Chris Rock is like at gigs. He's on tour at the moment, and like there's reports of him going on stage, and he's like, "Oh, I'm not ready." Like at the top of the show, he's like, "I'm not ready to talk about it yet." Like I know you might be coming here thinking he's going to have a take. He's like, "I'm still kind of like working out what the fuck happened."
Yeah,
which is sort of makes you realise that.
I think that's a very good way as a comedian for him to play it, because I think that the dust still hasn't settled from that yet.
No,
and he's got to wait
not.
to see how it all plays
but also,
out.
I think
it's talking about.
But for him to go, "Oh, I'm cool. I'm not cool with this yet."
Yeah.
To talk about is because look, I think whenever anything bad happens in a comedian's life, you think, "Oh, I'm going to write a bit about this." Like I've got a really new bit. Like it's like not even that old. I had a bit of a cancer scare last year, and I didn't have cancer, but they thought I might. There was a couple of things that happened. They were like, "This might be cancer," and the first thing I thought was, "Well, this is going to make a great routine." Like that's the first, because that's how you deal with it. You're like, "Oh yeah," and like during all the checks and stuff, I was like making jokes and like having a colonoscopy. Like when they open your ass with a speculum, I was like making the noise like they were blowing over the top of a beer bottle because if there was a draft in the room. And you're like, "Oh, it's a really serious thing." But the first thing you think as a comic is like, "How can I make this funny?"
Yeah.
And I've started talking about it on stage, so I think it's the same with that.
But you're all good.
Oh, I'm fine. Yeah. I've just been wiping my bum too hard. It turns out I wasn't bleeding out of my anus. Just giving it a real vigorous wipe. Like, is there blood when you go to the loo? I was like, yeah, there is actually. Like, you're being too clean. It was nothing major. There was nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
But basically, it was just like. But when it was going through that, you're not going, "Oh no." You're going, "Right, how can I turn this into a routine?"
Yeah.
Because also, when you talk about those kind of things on stage, like if it really connects with people, because people have all experienced someone that's got cancer and things. So if you get it right, it can really strike a chord with an audience. Whereas if you get it wrong, you upset a lot of people. It's a real balancing act.
And that's where there's magic in comedy, isn't there?
Yeah, if you just get it the right side of the line, you absolutely, you do really well. Whereas if you get it just wrong, like I've been trying this cancer bit for a few months, and like to begin with, when you do new material gigs, it's not very funny because you're not quite right on the right side of the line. You're still trying to work out where the jokes are.
Yeah.
And you get a joke wrong and everyone goes, "That's too far," in an audience. And that's the best thing about being a comedian, is you don't make something, say like a film, you don't make this thing and then go, "I hope everyone likes it."
Yeah.
You say it and they go, "No." And then you go, "Okay, I won't do that again." And you'll try it a different way.
Yeah.
And then you slowly work out the right place for it to come from.
Yeah. That's the genius about comedy, though.
It is. And you know what? I've had bits where you go, I've gone to an audience and I've gone, "There's going to be something funny here, but I need to talk about it on stage, and there might not be many jokes in it yet while I'm trying to work out where the jokes are, or there might be bits that aren't funny but you find offensive, but I'm trying to work out where the funny bits are."
Yeah.
And that's why you have like little new material gigs.
Yeah.
Watch people die. To watch comedians going, "Wow, all that was terrible."
Yeah. That's great. Mate, I appreciate you coming on.
Mate, thanks for having me. It's been really lovely.
It's been so nice and insightful to see into this world that I never would have delved into had I not spoke to you. So,
nice one.
Mate, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Nice one, Matt.
Cheers.